Welcome to Elite K-9 Unleashed. I'm Chris, a former law enforcement K-9 handler and a professional dog trainer.
And I am Rachel, business strategist, and the one behind all things business and marketing here at Idaho Elite K-9 Training and Boarding Suites.
Together, we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to raise, train, and live with dogs at the highest level.
And we'll share the stories, lessons, and laughs on what it takes to build a business, a family, and a life centered around dogs.
Whether you're a dog owner, trainer, or handler, or just somebody who loves dogs, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Elite K-9 Unleashed. What's the most common dog training question you're asked all the time?
I get asked lots of questions, but a lot of times is my dog trainable, or can we fix these issues? We get asked that all the time. So today, we're going to be doing exactly that. We're going to be answering a lot of the questions that the viewers have submitted. So welcome back to Elite K-9 Unleashed. This is episode 8, and we're just going to start off and start answering questions.
We get tons and tons of questions, whether in person, on the phone, social media, and we just noticed kind of some themes in all of them. So we've combined our most frequently asked questions by our clients, friends, family, and viewers, and we've put them on a list to answer here for you today. So let's dive into it. I think we'll start with some dog training and behavior questions first. So what's the biggest mistake dog owners make when trying to train their dog at home?
I think a lot of people, especially once they get puppy, if they're getting a puppy, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't start working with the puppy right away, right? They think they have to wait till the dog's 6 months old or 8 months old before they start training. We have 8, 9, 10-week-old puppies here that we can do a ton of training with right now, really shape a lot of their behaviors. We use food to train, and it's just fun, exciting for them, and they can learn a ton when they're young. So that's one big thing that we see. Another big thing, probably people start to use a lot of food, which is really good to start with, but they continue that, and the dog's, 8 months old, a year old, and they're still using treats for every single thing. And then we hear all the time, hey, if I don't have a treat, my dog won't do what I ask him to do. And some of that is because at some point we have to fade the lure, we have to fade some treats a little bit, and then we have to start to use pressure or some corrections to hold them accountable if they know what they should be doing.
Right. Yeah. Getting those foundations when they're super young is really important. So I know you just touched on this, like how early people should start training, starting in that 8, 9, 10-week-old window. And a lot of people tend to miss that because they think they need to wait. So for someone who is getting ready to maybe do some things in that younger window, they've heard you on this podcast, what would their focus need to be on first in those first few weeks of training?
So usually what we first start teaching people is, 1, you need to crate train. 2, you need to be working on potty training. Crate training is going to help with that. And then we're going to start to train the dog with food. And how we do that is none of their meals are eaten out of a bowl. We hand feed all of our meals to puppies. And during that time is when we do training. So we make the dog basically work for their food, right?
Yeah.
For them, it's fun. They're excited. They want to do it. But when you start setting that up, anytime it's time to eat, the puppy's ready to work and is willing to work with you and wants to train. And it just really, really makes training enjoyable for the puppy and makes them really want to engage with you, build a relationship with you. It's probably the best way to start training and to get a good relationship with your puppy.
Perfect. So this next question, I feel like probably in the top 3 most common questions we get. And it's one of my favorite because I'd say 95% of our evals that come in ask this particular question. And within seconds, you usually fix and remedy it for them. And they're usually always amazed. So the next question on the list is, what's the best way to stop a dog from pulling on a leash?
So a lot of the issue is we get people that come in, most of them, and the dog's on a harness, right? And what I try to tell people, and I don't necessarily blame some people because some dogs, they'll be on a flat collar or something. They're like, well, the dog's choking himself and he's being, I don't want him to cause damage to his throat, that kind of stuff. So they switch over to a harness because of that. Harnesses are not designed for any type of control, right? Harnesses are designed for rappelling, tracking, pulling. That's literally what they're designed for is for a dog to pull. It distributes the pressure evenly across the dog's body so that they're able to pull. So usually when they come in, we go over different tools that we have that we use to apply pressure, right? Whether it's a slip leash, fur savers, prong collars, because, and I'm not a huge fan, like so, a lot of times we'll start maybe with a slip leash and introduce the dog to some pressure. But I'm not a huge fan necessarily of slip leashes just because it also is very, very one-sided pressure. So it can be tough on the neck. Not that we use them, but if you have a dog that is going to maybe need more pressure, some dogs, slip leash is plenty. You apply a little pressure, you teach the owner how to do that, then that's more than enough. But some dogs, switching over to like a prong is way better for the dog. It distributes that pressure evenly around the neck, so they're not getting a ton of pressure on their esophagus or their throat. That's literally what that collar is designed to do, is really distribute that pressure evenly around the dog's neck. So usually when they come in, we'll switch them to a slip leash or a prong collar, depending on the dog. Most of the time we're going to start with a slip leash. We'll do some drills introducing the dog to pressure. I'm kind of teaching them how to shut pressure off, that kind of stuff. And then we'll go into opposition reflex and all these things about we don't want to keep pressure on the leash. We want a nice loose leash. And if the dog gets out of position, then we apply a little pressure. If the dog gets back in position, then we reward that behavior, right? So we mark and reward where we want the dog. We use a little pressure when the dog's out of position. And usually within 30 seconds to a minute, the dog's already starting to focus on you. You're able to pay the dog, reward the dog, not necessarily have to use a ton of pressure. Dog gets out. Dogs understand pressure, and they understand fairly quickly how to shut pressure off. Especially if you do some pressure drills and stuff, they figure that stuff out really, really quick. They're kind of built that way to understand pressure. So being able to just apply pressure, meaningful pressure that they understand a couple times, and then rewarding when they are in good position, marking that behavior. I mean, no, they're not fixed, right? It's not like 30 seconds the dog will heal perfect all the time. But you're starting to shape that behavior and build that foundation for that dog to like, okay, I'm getting this. If I stay in this position and I'm checking in with you, good things happen, right? I get paid for that. If I get out of position, I get a little pressure. I would rather stay in position and get rewarded. And so as we shape that behavior and kind of mold that, fairly quickly the dog figures it out, and now you have a dog that if the owner stays consistent and the owner works with them and trains like we ask them to do, you have a dog that's not going to pull on leash anymore.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, it's not absolutely fixed in that training session, but it's usually enough that within a couple of minutes, most of the pet parents that come in here for an eval are like, oh my gosh, that's completely different than what I'm getting at home when I have the dog on the leash. But I would say one of the top 3 questions that we get asked here for sure. The next question I feel like is a little bit of a loaded question just because of the nature of what it is. So I'd say like probably the most basic answer you could give for it, because there's like, it could just be a very in-depth question. But we do get a lot of people who ask how to properly introduce the e-collar when your dog is ready for it. Most of the time, I feel like you get that question before people have the proper foundations they need.
Yeah, I would say probably the best way to introduce an e-collar is find a trainer that knows what they're doing, and go, because 99, probably 95, 98% of the dogs out there truly are not ready for e-collar. And it's not mainly because they don't have the training or the foundation that they need to start e-collar. Doesn't necessarily have anything other to do with the fact that we want them to have all of that foundation, and we want them to have the obedience, the leash control, understanding how to shut leash pressure, all that kind of stuff before we move to e-collar. Most people call and just say they don't have any of that, right? And it's like, well, I just want to get them on e-collar. Well, there's a bunch of stuff we need to do before that. So usually Usually what I would say is find somebody. Once you have foundation, once you have an understanding, once the dog understands stuff, find a trainer, work through the stuff, and then do e-collar with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you find someone who can help you do it right and lay those foundations first. Super important. We do get a fair amount of questions about this as well. So how do you handle fear-based aggression versus dominance-based aggression? And I do notice as I take a lot of calls at the front desk, usually if an aggression question comes in with dog behavior, they always will say, well, it's fear-based or he wants to be the one in control. And so they do always, as pet parents, usually the questions are based in how they feel like the dog is, reacting with that.
I think a lot of people get reactivity confused, right? A lot of people think that their reactivity is the dog's trying to protect them or the dog's dominant or the dog's, all the time, well, I think he just wants to protect me. That's usually not the case. Most regular dogs, I would say almost all regular dogs, if somebody came to attack you, your dog's going to run. Your dog's not going to stay and fight. Not all of them, but the vast majority are not going to stay and protect you. They're just not built to do that. So I think people get a lot of reactivity stuff confused. We have people say, well, I think they just see the other dog and they're just so excited they just want to go play. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes you can tell the dog's just overstimulated, overexcited, just wants to go play. But we see a ton of those dogs that they don't want to go play. They want to go eat up the other dog, right? So one, reactivity is really misunderstood. And it's hard to understand some of the stuff and what's happening, especially if you don't know. So that's reasonable. I would say most of reactivity is fear-based. I don't know what percentage, but I would say the majority of reactivity is a fear-based reactivity. It doesn't look like that, right? Because what happens is if the dog's nervous, scared, that kind of stuff, they usually act big and scary. We see the opposite, right? So the dog is barking and acts aggressive. And so what looks like a lot of people get confused. They're like, well, he doesn't seem scared, right? Well, what happens is the dog does that so they don't have to deal with what's there, right? So if they act big and scary, then whatever they're afraid of or whatever's making them nervous hopefully goes away. And with dogs, that usually works because whether it's people, most of the time it can be dogs and people, but they act big and scary and people, get away from the dog, right? And that's just reinforcing that behavior. So every time that happens, the dog realizes, oh, I just won that, right? That works for me. So, and a lot of times the stuff can transfer or merge into different things. So it maybe starts as fear-based reactivity or different, any kind of reactivity, and then it moves into, hey, this is kind of the new thing we do. This is the sport, right? This is the new cool thing. The dog's no longer fearful. The dog just almost enjoys. It's just like hey, this is what I do now. And the dog starts to enjoy that kind of stuff. So they purposely are reactive, right? It's not because I'm scared. Now we do it because, hey, I like to do this. And there's lots of things that happen during that time. There's internal rewards that happen with the dog that make the dogs like to do that, right? They get adrenaline and dopamine and all this stuff's happening inside that we can't control if the dog goes over threshold. So it's a really in-depth question, but what I would say is we handle a lot of the same reactivity stuff fairly the same, just depending on what we're dealing with. But the idea is stop getting the dog to go over threshold so he doesn't get all amped up and get the release of all the internal rewards. And then we start to condition the dog around his triggers and start to have him work around those without going over threshold. And we condition until the dog eventually can be around those things without it being a problem.
Perfect. The next question is, how do you know if and when your dog is a good candidate for off-leash reliability?
Well, you should. I mean, by the time you get to that point, I don't think there's any question that right? Like you've done the foundation, you've done the work, you've done your leash stuff, you've done long line work, you've done everything up to e-collar, you've done e-collar work, and you know.
Well, but I think the flip side to that is it's easy for you to know because you do it every day. I, who've spent thousands of hours in your presence while you're training over the years, literally the other day, I even asked you this question because we recently got two of our, like he just put two of our dogs fully like off leash on e-collar. And he's like, they're ready to go off leash. And he went out and he did it and he came back in and they perfectly excelled at what he asked them to do. But for me, I was like, well, how do you know they're ready? Like, and I've spent so much time in your space while you're training. So I think for you to be like, well, you'll know because you've done X, Y, and Z. I think even sometimes for clients who've been through a program with you and they get to that point, like they rely on you to tell them when they're ready.
Yeah. And I think even when I see those, our clients that come through, like I know they're ready because we've done the work, we've done the training, but I think it does come down like sometimes they're like, I don't know. Do you think he's going to come back? Do you can we walk outside with him? I'm just not sure. So I think some of that's confidence and reassuring them that like, hey, you've done the work. He knows what you're asking of him. We go out here and you call him, he's going to come back. If he doesn't, then you have an e-collar and you can give a correction. But most of the time, by that point, they go out, they walk around, and the dog's just like perfect. And they're like, well, I never thought we'd be here. So I guess for me, that's a good point. For me, it's pretty clear because people have put in all the work. But we transition, right? There's steps to that, all the way from our regular stuff to long lines to... So by the time we get to where we're going to cut the dog off leash, I mean, the dog's already been working on a 30-foot long line, dragging, like we're not even touching it, really. And the dog might realize that. Some dogs are smart about leashes. But by that time, I already know, like, hey, you're going to be fine. The dog's going to, and he might try to push some boundaries, and we'll address that if he does. But most of the time, we've done the foundation. The client's done the foundation and the dog's ready to go.
And that really is the most important piece, just staying consistent, doing the homework, laying all those foundational obedience pieces to be able to be ready.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Like it takes time, effort, energy, not hours a day, but it does take being consistent and 1 or 2, 3 sessions a day, short sessions, and just being consistent with the dog.
Yeah. So the next question I'd say probably makes the top 5 questions, at least that come in on the phones, because the phones usually ring all day around here. And one of the top 5 questions that I would say we would get is it ever too late to train an older dog? Or it's usually phrased as, my dog is X amount of years old. Is my dog too old to train?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. And usually what I tell people is no dog's too old to train, right? We would love to train all dogs starting at 8, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, because it would make it so much easier. And dogs, generally, we wouldn't have all the issues we have with the dogs, all the dogs we dealt with if they'd started at a young age. But what I tell people is if a dog, like let's talk reactivity, if a dog's reactive and has been reactive for 8 years, 7 years, 10 years, can we still make things better? Yeah, we can make things better. Maybe 10 times better, 50 to 100 times better. I don't know. Are we going to completely erase that behavior? Probably not, right? That dog has rehearsed that behavior probably thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So we're probably not going to erase it all the way. We can definitely make it better. We can work on things. So stuff like that, I'm just honest with people. And then, but if we're talking like regular obedience stuff, yeah, we can work through regular obedience. Dog's not too old to train. It's just when we start talking some behavioral things, we just kind of let you know, like if it's something the dog's done for rehearsed, every day for years and years and years, We can definitely make it better, but we're probably not going to erase it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. When you do something thousands and thousands of times, those neural pathways are built in the brain and habits are formed, and you can do the work to help make it better, but you just never know exactly how much better it's going to get.
Yep.
This question, I feel like, is asked a lot. So normally when people come in, they're here for obedience training for an eval. They're focused more on the commands like sit, stay, downhill. And you always will ask, does the dog have a place command? And a lot of times people will say no, or well, kind of, or he'll go to his bed. But I do feel like it's a little bit overlooked as far as like the importance of it. And so the question is, why do we use a place command in training, and how does it benefit dogs in their daily life?
So place commands are amazing. How does it benefit your dog or you in your daily life? Most of the time, dogs are, especially when they're younger, they're bouncing off the walls, they're jumping on everybody. You have people come over. As soon as somebody knocks, they bark, they go to the door, they're jumping all over company, they're overexcited. Maybe you're going to make dinner and you don't want the dog in the kitchen jumping and counter surfing and doing all the things the dog shouldn't be doing. A place command allows for the dog to be out and about, still be part of the family, still be in the middle of everything, but to be under control. It's not timeout. They're not in trouble. I hear some people say, well, we use timeout. Like when they're in trouble, we use place as timeout. Place should be a good, fun, happy place, comfortable.
Not a punishment.
Not a punishment, right? Mm-hmm. But why is it so important? Well, how are we going to address the dog meeting people at the door and jumping all over them? A place command. We're going to tell the dog to go to the place. That way you can go answer the door. People can come in. The dog's going to stay on the place if you've done the training. So it just allows, maybe you're camping. You set a place outside your camper. You guys are hanging out. You can place the dog. He's got a good place to hang out. You're making dinner. Company comes over. You have a new baby crawling around. You don't want the dog running around. It just allows to have control and have the dog still be out and about, see everything that's going on, be part of the family, but under control.
Yeah.
So it's, in my opinion, life-changing once you get a good place command.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You go from, okay, the dog's out of control to, hey, we can have the dog out while we're watching a movie. Mm-hmm. We can have company over and eat dinner and not have the dog under the table or jumping on the counters or jumping all over people. So place command, I would say, is there's a couple things that I think are absolute necessities for dogs. And recall is one, being able to get the dog to come back to you. And a good place command is one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I love, because we have a lot of dogs, that at night the dogs can come in and we can watch a movie. They're all in their places, and they're chilling and relaxing, and we're all in the same space. They're part of the family, but like they're calm and happy in their own safe space because you've taken the time and effort to make sure they all have that place command. It has a million uses, I feel like, in day-to-day life, and so helpful. It completely changes the ball game once they learn that one.
Yeah, and that doesn't even touch into like training stuff, and when we can use a place and work dogs around a dog on a place. There's all sorts of different things to have a dog hold a position, and that doesn't mean that your dog can't walk around the house. Doesn't mean he can't come sit on the couch. He can still do all those things, but when you're ready to say, hey, you need to go sit in a place or you need to stay in a certain place, then you have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is super helpful. We do get a lot of questions about this one as well. How do you help a dog with separation anxiety?
So we deal with very, very varying levels of separation anxiety. We have some dogs that have a little bit and can kind of work through that fairly quick. And then we have some dogs that have severe cases. One thing I do find in common with most dogs that have separation anxiety is most of them have never been crate trained. Mm-hmm. They've always been allowed to be right next to their human. And if their human walks from one room, they're there. If they're human, they don't even have a place command, right? It doesn't matter what they do. The dog's on their hip. and then they leave and the dog tears things up in the house and runs around instead of being in a crate or something like that. It is important, especially at a young age too. Now, I know not everybody gets dogs at a young age. The people that are getting shelter dogs and stuff like that really have to work through this process. But if you start at a young age crate training, if you start at a young age placing a dog and being able to go out of the room, you start to teach the dog that I don't have to be right here with you. It's okay. You're going to survive on your own. It's okay. It's going to be okay. We could go into lots of detail about how you train through this.
It is kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, if you've got, first thing first, you got to get your obedience and structure down. You just have to. You have to be able to have enough control of the dog to start to work through the issues. And maybe we start with a place command, right? The dog's got to be able to place. You got to be able to eventually be able to walk out of the room for 2 seconds and then back in, and then longer and longer, and kind of build things from that. There's a whole lot that goes into this, but to start with, obedience, control, foundation, all of that kind of stuff, and then we start working through the issue. And if you haven't crate trained, every dog should be crate trained.
Yes.
Doesn't mean if your dog's good out of the crate, doesn't mean that you can't leave him out of the crate when you go if you know he just goes and lays down. But there's lots of dogs that die every year. There's houses that are being burnt down. There's all sorts of bad things that can happen if your dog's out and about. So at the very least, they should all be crate trained. I'm not saying you have to put them in a crate, but
you should be able to crate them if needed.
Yeah, it's important. Especially too, like if you travel and you want to take your dogs, like we should be able to set up a crate in the hotel room, crate the dogs, and go out to dinner. Mm-hmm. Come back, and I don't get a call from the hotel saying, "Hey, your dogs are barking. Like you need to come back and make them be quiet, or we're gonna kick you out." Just being able to have that ability to create them, and it's not a big deal.
Right.
So
yeah, it is very, very helpful. How long does it typically take to train a dog to be reliable in obedience?
We talking just on leash, off leash?
I mean, that is literally usually how the question is phrased. Like, how long is it going to take? And that is usually my response before I even get them to you on a call or in an eval is, what level are we working towards? Do we want on-leash obedience? Do we want off-leash obedience? Are we getting all the way to e-collar? Are you needing advanced or specialized training? So I'd say, let's say they just want to get foundational obedience to where they can work off-leash.
You're 8 weeks at least. If you really do your homework and really stay on top of stuff, we could probably do it a little faster, but 8 weeks is pretty reasonable. In 8 weeks, we could take a dog that has 0 obedience, get you all your structure foundation, intermediate stuff, get you more advanced obedience off leash, as long as the work's being done.
Yeah.
If the work's not being done or you're not overly consistent, then we're looking, 10, 12, 16 weeks, right? If you're not working the dog, it's going to take a lot longer. If you're consistently working the dog 2, 3, 4 times in a day, short sessions, 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, you'll cruise. I mean, you could probably do it, but I would say 8 weeks, pretty average.
Yeah, I would say so too. I would say in all of the clients we've worked with, there's probably only been a handful that have been able to get through it in about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. But those people were going home. They were probably going like above and beyond what you asked them to do with their homework every week.
Yeah, because we try to break it down into smaller pieces so that the clients can be successful. Instead of throwing a ton at them, we just do, okay, you're going to go home and work on these 3, just maybe these 3 or 4 things. Then you come back, we'll add to it. Then you come back and we'll add to that. So go home, practice, get really good at it, and we're going to add to it the next time you come.
Yes. Okay, so the next few questions are still dog training questions, but they are ones that I pulled off specific Facebook threads or have come in other ways. So the first one is, if a dog is not treat, toy, or food motivated, how do you lure them into position? For example, to food lure them into a sit while you're training.
So there's a lot of parts to this question, or a lot that I could go into. What I would usually say is all dogs have some form of motivation. for the most part. There are a few out there that have zero motivation for anything. Usually if they say their dog doesn't have food drive or this, I'll say, well, how are you feeding your dog? Well, we just free feed him. We just fill his dish full. He always has food. Well, then why would the dog have food drive? Because the dog is always full. That's like me going to the buffet all the time, every hour or whenever I want. And then you, 10 minutes after I'm done with the buffet, you're like, hey, you want to go back to the buffet? I'd be like, no, I'm full. So food has value, different levels, high value. Obviously, as the dog gets fuller, your food has less value. So usually a lot of these dogs don't have certain drives or aren't food motivated, aren't because of things that are happening at home. So the first thing I would say is we probably need to address what's happening and see if we can help with food drive. If we do training sessions with food, and then other than that, we put food up, that can really help. But if your dog had zero, if there was a dog that had zero drive for something, then we're really going to be using more pressure, right? And I'm not talking necessarily mean pressure or anything like that. We're just going to apply some pressure. Dogs understand pressure. We can apply some pressure for a sit. Dog sits, we release pressure. So his reward, in a sense, is going to be shutting pressure off. But again, like I say, there's been very few dogs that we've worked with here that don't have some kind of motivation. Mm-hmm. You just have to find it. And sometimes we got to change some things at home to be able to find that. Some dogs, it's praise, love.
I was going to mention that. I said the one piece that's missing, I feel like, from that question is what about like praise, tone of voice, afflection of voice wasn't touched on there.
Yeah, sometimes some dogs just love praise and love and being, pet, and some dogs like food, some dogs like toys, so you just really got to find what works for that dog. Mm-hmm. That's why we say, like train the dog. That's like when I'm working with some of my trainers and stuff, I could tell them, like, you got to train the dog that you're working with, right? The dog that's in front of you. That's different than the last dog that you trained. That's different than the other session that you just did. That's different than the other board and train. You have to train the dog that is there, and they're all different. They're individuals like us, so you just got to find what works for them. Ultimately, if you have nothing else, so say, to try to answer that question, say the dog truly has nothing. We cannot find something that motivates the dog, then we're going to use pressure-based training.
Okay. I think, too, that on that note is that's why as a trainer, it's super important to continually educate yourself, to continually be adding things to your toolbox, to always have a plethora of things and knowledge to choose from, because you never know what's going to walk through the door as far as the dogs that you're going to be training. And you are really great about making sure all of the trainers that train with you and under you are constantly learning and educating, and you never stop learning. And that, I think, comes in handy for situations like that, because you're always learning a new piece of information, learning about a new training tool or piece of equipment you could use that you might not use all the time, but you may need to use in an instance like that. Yeah.
I look forward to going to trainings and taking our staff with us, and maybe not during our busy time. It's been summer, so it's been crazy busy. But here, maybe as we slow down a little bit, we've already been to 2 trainings this year, both in California. And I think we'll, as things slow down, we'll look for some more trainings, and we try to take our staff. Usually what I tell people is it's not the core foundation doesn't necessarily change. We're just learning different things that work for different dogs and different tools and there's so many things out there that people do that even I see, and I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. I've never seen that. That works techniques. Great, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being able to go see that kind of stuff and just take in as much information as we can is really, really, really helpful. We just want to really have all the tools to be able to work with any dog.
Absolutely. So the next question is from a Facebook thread, and it is, how do you keep your dog from greeting everyone who comes how do you keep your dog from greeting everyone who comes to the door? And that's from Jessica.
So we talked about this a little bit, that wonderful place command, being able to have that control to be able to place your dog. I mean, essentially you could do it, right? You should have a strong enough down or a strong enough sit or strong enough that, like, if you down the dog stays in a down until you release it. But for most people, like, a good place command or something is the best way to do that. It's going to solve a lot of those issues, jumping, overexcitement, trying to run out the front door. If you can get a good place command, have the dog stay on the place, company comes in, dog gets to see him but has to stay on the place. Once the dog calms, and I mean calms down, like not just, like kind of almost loses interest, sees you guys interacting, we're hanging out in the living room talking. Once the dog calms down, then you can release the dog and the dog can calmly come over and meet people. Sometimes what you'll see too, if you do this, the dog will start to calm faster and faster. Like he knows like, oh, I'm going to get off and I get to come say hi.
Right.
I just got to hang out here till, mom or dad releases me, and then I get to come say hi. So how would I fix that, or how do I address that? Good place command is going to solve so many issues.
It really is priceless having that down.
Yeah.
This one also came from Facebook. They said, do a segment about letting your dog go up to other dogs in public without asking, looking at things like dog body language when they don't want to meet the other dogs. And that was from Rain.
So we see this a lot. And I think before we're even worried about dog language or dog body language, all that kind of stuff, we see this all the time. And really what I tell people is stop doing it. If you're out and about, do not let your dog go up to somebody that's walking a dog. You have no idea if that dog's friendly, not friendly. You have no idea what the obedience level is. You have no idea what the handler level is, owner level. And it's just bad. It's just not polite, right?
Bad etiquette. Yeah.
But people all the time letting their dogs go up, and you see a ton of fights that happen this way. And the bad thing about that is you may have a dog that is usually friendly, that gets, somebody walks up with a dog that most people aren't real educated if their dog's overly nice or not for the most part. They think, oh yeah, like he's mostly nice, but sometimes he's not. Same reason we don't do a lot of group play here, right? Because you get some people that are like, oh, my dog's friendly. And then you get them with another dog and the dog's not friendly, right? Mm-hmm. But you have a dog that maybe has no reactivity issues, no aggression issues, not anything. And it takes one or two bad experiences of a dog walking up to him and say he gets attacked or something happens. Now you have issues with your dog. So usually what I tell people is step in front of your dog and tell the people, can you please get your dog away? Try to be polite. If they don't, well, then tell them to get away from you. Now, if you guys sit and talk, the polite way to do this is, hey, I see you have a dog. My dog's well behaved. I come over, I sit my dog down. We talk for a minute at a distance. Hopefully, I can tell pretty quick if your dog's well behaved or not, because it's not dragging over to us trying to pull on the leash. Maybe we have a conversation for a little bit and like, hey, we can talk, get a little history on our dogs. And if it's something that maybe we want to do, maybe we walk together for a little bit. But for the most part, I don't recommend that. Your dog should be friends with your family, your family's dogs, people you go camping with, like people that are in his realm or his world, not just random people up and down everywhere.
The street, yeah.
I hope that answered that.
Yeah, no, I think you did a good job answering both parts. So the next one came in off of one of our TikTok reels. What if a dog needs a soft handler and shuts down with a prong? Would you be open to using a different tool like a slip?
Absolutely. I think that's a lot of times why we start with something like a slip leash. I mean, and there's all sorts of collars out there. Martingale, I mean, not that you have to go right to a slip leash. There are other tools out there that could be plenty. But yeah, if your dog's shutting down with a prong, you need to get the prong off the dog. And go to something that applies less pressure, maybe a slip leash. And some of this could be handler, some of this could be dog. If you have a fairly soft dog, You've got to be really cautious about overpressuring the dog. That's going to cause you tons of problems. And if you have a harder handler, that handler needs to learn to be a little softer, to help the dog work through things, to not be so harsh, even in just tones, right? More high happy, bigger rewards for the dog, and really help that dog move through that. But some dogs are soft, and there's nothing wrong with a soft dog. Some dogs are hard. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. But yeah, if your dog has a prong on and shuts down, either a couple things are happening. Either you're giving too much pressure to the dog, or the dog is a very soft dog. You need to get the prong collar off, and you need to work with a tool that applies less pressure. And you yourself needs to work on maybe not applying so much pressure. And I don't know because I haven't seen the dog or the owner, so it's hard to say what's happening for sure. It could just be the handler. It could just be a soft dog. But somewhere you've got to work the dog through that, and you need to. If you know the dog's shutting down, then we're applying too much pressure. And that's, I mean, it's a loaded question because then you get some dogs that are shut down walking out the front door, right? Some dogs won't even get into a car. Some dogs can't even walk in the front door here without peeing and pooing because they're so terrified. So there's different levels of that. If you're talking just a general dog that's pretty happy-go-lucky, maybe a little softer dog, then we're probably applying too much pressure. Use a different tool, more high-happy, more rewarding, less pressure.
Perfect. How can I convince my husband to buy me a dog?
Well, I think I know who asked this question, but I think you guys just need to sit down and you need to pick a good dog that's going to fit the family.
The lifestyle.
The lifestyle, what you guys do. But you guys sit down and have a discussion. And a really good way is take him to start looking at some dogs, especially maybe some puppies, and let him hold the puppies. Then maybe he'll go home with one. So.
Aren't you supposed to?
Yeah, Curtis, you're supposed to get her a dog. At some point, she wants a dog. And you're good because we can watch it when you guys go out of town. So
can come to work.
Yeah, come to work with
all
her.
The things.
So, but she wants a dog.
Okay. So the next question came from a TikTok reel. How old can you start the collar? Would love to start walks, but don't want to create bad habits. And I'm not sure by collar if they mean prong collar or if they were referring to a slip leash. That was the question.
It's hard to answer if we don't necessarily know what collar they're talking about.
I think it might have come in on a prong collar reel.
Yeah, so a lot of times, we get asked like all the time, like, should I put my dog on a prong collar? And the dog's like, 4 months old, 3 months old. We usually start with slip leashes, teach the dog pressure and all that kind of stuff before we ever get like to prong collar. Now, if the dog comes in at a year old or two, a little different, but I would say do less. Like a lot of people really just want to go like walk the dog, when it's a young puppy, like go walk the dog around the block. I'm not saying you can't do that, but really we should be doing training sessions and teaching the dog a heel with food, shaping that behavior, teaching the dog. And then when we go to walk, dog's already focused on me. I can pay the dog as we're going through the walk. So I would say there's some foundational stuff to do before we just go for walks. Doesn't mean don't exercise your dog. Your dog can play ball in the backyard. Your dog can walk around the backyard. You can walk on leash around the backyard and practice. And walk on leash in the front yard and practice. But we really want to teach the dog some foundational stuff if it's a puppy. Mm-hmm. We do not want to put a prong on a puppy. Let me rephrase that. Can you put a prong on a puppy? Yes. But we do it a little different. I shouldn't say how we do it is we'll usually start with a slip leash, do a lot of slip leash work, pressure, teaching the dog how to shut pressure off, all that kind of stuff. And our dogs are usually a little older before we put prongs on them. There are some other cases where you have dogs that, refuse to walk or refuse to do certain things, and those might be special cases. But for the most part, a happy-go-lucky puppy that just wants to go, really start to build structure, foundation, your heels, your sits, your down, like all your structure. This one would be more a heel, and reward the dog so that when you're ready to start going on walks, short walks to start with the dog's paying attention, you're paying the dog during the walk and he's not just pulling on the leash, dragging you everywhere, that kind of stuff. So I would say don't rush out just to walk the dog. There's foundational stuff.
Build that first.
Build that first and then start building up your walks and go from there.
I think on that note, even with our puppies, like I feel like they're even a fair amount older before you even put them on a slip leash. Like usually you have them on a flat collar for quite a while they're younger.
Yeah, for a little. If we put them
you're
on
working like the food luring, and we don't.
And if we put them on a slip leash, we're not using pressure. I mean, they might hit the end of the leash, that kind of stuff, but it's more just to keep them attached to something. But we'll usually do slip leash work before we move into a prong. And I mean, we've got puppies here that, I mean, you say heel, and the dog's paying attention, heeling,
spinning.
Yeah, doing all sorts of stuff so that when it's time to go walk, the dog's already, doesn't mean the dog's going to be perfect. It's a puppy. Like, yeah, it might run to the end of the leash and then, hey, come back, heel, get the dog's attention, pay. But it's not just the dog just dragging us at the end of the leash, no focus on us, none of that, right? We want some of that first, so.
Okay, so we are going to move on from our regular dog training questions into the more like behind the scenes operations questions. The first one is, what's been the most rewarding part of starting Idaho Elite K-9?
There's been, I think, lots of rewarding parts and lots of very hard parts. I think some of the most rewarding parts is one, being able to work with our family. I get to see you every day, get to hang out with Savannah every day, get to hang out with the boys, maybe not every day, but just being able to have them here and being involved has been really enjoyable for me compared to where I used to just go to work and not see you guys. So that's one really rewarding part for me, probably one of the most rewarding. There's a hard side to that too, obviously, because we're always here right now. And I think our personal life has sacrificed a lot to be able to do that. But there is a positive to that. I think the second most rewarding part, one, I mean, I love working with the dogs. I like to see the transformation with the dogs. I like dogs and owners and people that come in and have we have a dog that has no real life, right? Because it can't do anything and it's out of control and it's all this, and seeing the dog then be able to go do anything they want, right? Is really, really cool to see. But I like people, and we have some of the best clients.
We do.
And probably a really rewarding part is getting to know people, and not just at like a working level, like really getting to know people, getting to know families, staying in contact. Sometimes we're not the best at it because we're crazy busy, but we just have some of the best clients. Getting to meet some of the best people has been really, really rewarding and really fun.
Yeah, and hearing everyone's story and seeing the transformations and the people that start as clients but become very close friends. We do have really, really phenomenal people that have supported us. And honestly, it's grown into something much bigger than I ever imagined it could have grown into. But I would agree. I think there's been some really amazing, rewarding parts and some parts that are super, super hard. In fact, I was just talking to Braden this morning and telling him, like, in some ways it's phenomenal, but every side of it, every amazing thing that happens, there's a blessing and a curse to it, right? Like there's a good and a bad and amazing and a hard, and that's just part of life and part of growth. But the fact that, like, for years, I wondered, like, if just law enforcement life would be our life, or I'd be like, hey, what if we tried this? And you'd be like, nope, I'm gonna be copping till I retire. And then just to see you, like, take that step and want to do something different and grow it into what it is and be able to be together every day, it's life-changing in a lot of ways for us. So it's been really, really great. The next question is, what inspired you to start the podcast and what's your goal with it?
Most of the filming, whether it's our reels, whether it's the podcast, whether it's...
He's going to give you the honest answer. It's real
you want
honesty
you
right
want the
here.
honest answer, right? My wife, Rachel, is big into marketing, social media, all that kind of stuff. And this is something that we need to do. And so that's how this all started was, well, we need to do this and we need to have a podcast and we need to, do reels and which has actually been hugely beneficial. So I'm glad that she's kind of made me do that.
It's just the typical, my wife makes me do all the shit I don't want to do, right?
Yeah. But as time has gone on, I actually enjoy the podcast when we get to come in here and talk. Like I look forward to podcasting day. So what I kind of didn't like at first, I actually really enjoy this now, being able to talk and put stuff out for you guys, get questions from you guys, get new followers, get a community going. I've actually really enjoyed that. The reels and the kind of the short film stuff that we do, some days I enjoy it, other days it's kind of hard. But what is my goal with this? We just want to grow our community. I think so many people are uneducated about dog stuff, business stuff, life. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff on here, mostly dog stuff. But being able to give what information we have, and trust me, I don't know. There's plenty I don't know. We continue to educate ourselves, but just trying to help people understand things, trying to get good training information out there, trying to help dogs, trying to help people. So I just want to grow this as big as we can, and I want a nice, good community that we enjoy each other's questions and company, and that's really what I'm looking for right now. But I do enjoy these now. When we do the podcast, I actually look forward to podcast day now. So watch these because I enjoy this. And if you got questions, let us know because we really enjoy answering questions.
And I think as the wife who makes you do stuff you don't want to do sometimes, when we were first kicking around the idea of doing a podcast, it was more a lot of what you said at the end. Like there's just a lot of maybe not the best information out there and a lack of information out there. And I think a lot of it was more being able to have a piece where we could help educate pet parents and people who are fellow dog trainers and other people in this space who are wanting to grow a business, just being able to educate people and get good information about dog training out there and pet care and, like you said, business and success and growing things. And there's a lot of pieces that have gone in to get us to where we are. And we just hoped at the end of the day with starting the podcast, if we could provide value to someone in any of those situations, then that was a good contribution for us to make.
Absolutely.
What's one dog training myth you wish more people understood was false?
That you can't use pressure on a dog because it shuts them down. It's abuse. We've got so many dogs here that you're using pressure on, and they are through the roof happy working.
Yes.
Pressure is not always, no, sometimes corrective pressure cannot be enjoyable for dogs. But for the most part, if you're doing it correctly, dogs are excited to work for you. They want to work. So just pressure in general. A lot of people, I think, don't have a clue and don't understand anything about that. And it is doing so many dogs a disservice, dogs that could be saved, dogs that could be fixed. Instead, we're just going to do just treats and the dog's aggressive and needs to be put down. No, the dog needs some structure and some discipline and corrections, and you have a completely new dog. But instead of doing that, we'd rather just, put dogs down, take them to the shelter. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big myth, and it really, really is doing a disservice to dogs. We have so many dogs that are actually really good dogs that just need some training, some balanced training, and they're amazing. And we have people come to us like, if this doesn't work, we're going to put the dog down. If this doesn't work, we're giving the dog up. We can't keep the dog. Well, yeah, it's because you just need to put the effort in and understand how to train a dog, and it'll be the best dog you've ever had. Mm-hmm. So I think that gets frustrating for me.
Yeah, you do see a lot of that, or a lot of people who come in and want to train, but they're willing to invest in training. They'd rather just euthanize the dog.
Yeah, we do see some of that, and that's really frustrating. You get people that get a dog and want a fast fix, come to an eval, and like, well, I mean, I just want the dog trained. I don't want to spend the money. I don't have time, so we'll just put the dog down, or we'll take the dog to the vet, or take the dog to a shelter, and that just truly is a disservice to the dog. Mm-hmm. You have a dog. You got the dog.
Phenomenal.
You need to put the time and effort into the dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those situations always do make me really sad.
Yeah.
What is one dog breed you would never personally own, and why?
I mean, I love all dogs, but I wouldn't want to own a Cane Corso. We have a ton come in here. I know they're amazing dogs. You'll have people say they're the best dogs ever. It's just like some people own a Belgian Malinois, and we love Belgian Malinois. So
that comes down to personal preference.
Yeah. They're just big, big dogs. Not all of them are slobbery, but we see a fair amount in here that have, dog aggression, people aggression. And again, there are some genetics that can affect that. But a lot of it is because people aren't educated and don't train them, don't do what they need to do to make so the dog's not doing that. But they are guardy dogs. I mean, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. So nothing against them. I just, me personally, wouldn't want to own one. They're a lot of dog too. They're some big dogs. I'm not huge on little dogs. They're cute. I don't mind loving on them, but I personally wouldn't necessarily want a lot of the more smaller teacup, like little dogs. Most of the dogs we have are working dogs. Mm-hmm. And nothing, all of them, yeah. Nothing against little dogs. Like, we love little dogs, but I personally don't want a little dog. St. Bernards. We love St. Bernard. They're like big teddy bears. I love them.
Also, Brittany, if you're watching,
yes.
Leo's our favorite.
Yes. Leo's the king around here. But tons of slobber. So you just got to be ready for slobber, tons of hair. Those are just my personal things. Nothing against the dogs. Most of them can be absolutely amazing dogs, just not a dog I would own. Mm-hmm. I could go on, but yeah.
Okay.
And nothing against those dogs, just not ones that I would own. Just
personal preference.
Yep.
Doesn't mean we don't want to train them, see them, love on them. Just personal preference. Okay, so last question for the day. Who has influenced you most as a dog trainer or business owner?
That's a tough question. We've had tons of, I think, influence from lots of different people. Obviously, the sheriff's office was well, I shouldn't even say that. We used to hunt with Mike, Cameron, or some of the first people that we really started running dogs with, hounds. I mean, we had maybe some bird dogs and stuff before that. Had Rottweiler, grew up with dogs, but it really got us kind of in the working world with hunting dogs. They had a huge influence, because if we hadn't done that when I got into police work, I probably wouldn't have wanted to be a K-9 handler. Then the sheriff's office really got me, and I should say my brother, Brandon, he definitely was huge into the hounds and brought me along most of the time. But yeah, Cameron, Mike, Brandon, and then the sheriff's office, being able to be a K-9 handler, being out to Alabama K-9. Ricky Farley's out there. He was seeing him train, and the knowledge that he has was huge. And it's just continued. I mean, we go all over for training. We've met with Justin Rigney. We've met with Oscar Mora. We've met with Jim Clausen. We've met with all these people. And I think everybody has an influence, right? Taylor and Lindsay, like we wouldn't even be here. That's not even the dog training side. That's just more the business side, right? I think it's important to learn that everybody you meet, you can take something from, you can learn something from, and you don't have to take everything. But I think if you have an open mind, everybody you meet has something to offer. And so we have influences all the time, not just in the dog training world, the business world, all sorts of stuff. I mean, I could probably continue to name names, but really anybody that we mingle with and we learn from has something to offer, and we use some of the stuff and we don't use some of the stuff. So I guess somewhat of the short answer is that.
Well, and I think clearly I don't have a ton of influence on the dog trainer side because I'm not a dog trainer, but my side of the business definitely is the business side. I do think at the end of the day, when you talk about Taylor and Lindsay, like you probably would never have made the jump to do what you were doing if Taylor had not encouraged you for years and years and years to get to, you to have enough confidence to be able to make the full-time jump.
We definitely wouldn't have done it with, I still remember the phone call with Taylor, called and I was like, yeah, maybe we'll sit down and talk. And then we sat down and talked, and it was getting a little more real and a little more real. And then it was like even when we were doing it, I'm like, I don't think we should do this. I think this is a bad idea. We'd go back and forth. I would say, well, yeah, I think it'll be good. And then you'd be like, I don't know, I'm nervous, right? Which is normal. Like, if you don't jump and do something, you'll never know. And we made the jump, but we had a lot of people helping, and Taylor was a big part of that. Because if he hadn't set things up the way he did and really kind of pushed,
encouraged you to be like, dude, you can do this. You can do this.
Never made the jump. And I was terrified. Still am a little terrified, but it's getting better. But yeah, we definitely wouldn't be here right now. So
yeah. And outside of that, I have mentored in the business world with people for years and years and years, and learned so many skills that have also helped to completely change our life. And I think the one thing about business and mentors is, like Chris said, everyone has a circle of influence. And if you're able to take and glean and learn things from people who are steps ahead of you, and you can share that with your inner circle, like that's really powerful, especially if it's things that have like helped to change and revolutionize your own life, right? One of the biggest things I've learned is that it is important to invest in yourself. Like oftentimes, most times, anything of value that you're going to learn is going to come with an investment up front. And sometimes we believe that it's okay to make that investment and invest in ourselves. And other times I think we put that on the back burner because we have other things going on, or other things we feel that we need to take care of. But I think there shouldn't necessarily be a limit to being willing to invest in yourself, regardless of how you've got to make that happen. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, right? Maybe the investment's a time investment. Maybe it's a monetary investment, but there's always going to be an investment to learn something that's going to change your life. And at the end of the day, whatever the investment is, it is 100% worth it, because it takes the pedal to the metal faster. If you want to get from point A to point B faster than any other way you could, you find someone who's done what you want to do, you invest in yourself and have them teach you the way to get there, and you do it over and over and over to gain the skill set that you need for success. And I think having the people in our life that have taught us those things, and the people that we've went to learn with, you just showed me a picture the other day from when we went to Allison's convention a couple years ago. And it literally is this picture. Maybe I'll put it on social media with a post for you guys. And it's Chris and I holding up a sign. They asked us to date what was our biggest accomplishment. And at the time, I think I had put on my paper that we had closed a $7,000 contract, and you had put that we were finally able to pay in cash for a family vacation. And we've smashed those goals out of the water by now. And to see, he brought this picture to me and was like, look at this picture from a couple years ago.
We should post it. We'll post it.
We'll post it. And it was like,
We went to a business conference.
It was a business conference because it was someone that I was mentoring with, and we were able to go to this conference a couple years ago at the end of the mentoring program. And at the end of the conference, the last day, the very last thing they did was they asked us all to write our goals on the paper, and that's what we wrote. And then they came around, and everyone was like reading them and taking photos and stuff. And so someone snapped this photo of us holding them, and Chris brought it in the other day, and he was like, look at how far we've come. And those goals, if those are just your goals right now, like you want to make a certain amount of money, you want to take your family on vacation, like everyone should have something that they're working towards. And I just think the power in working with people like that is you're constantly working on the goals that you set forth for yourself instead of like not having someone who helps push you to reach for those things, right? And then you kind of just get stuck in the day-to-day and you don't push forward for those goals, and you get to 80 years old and you're like, man, I wish I really would have tried that. Or I wonder if I could have accomplished that. And you don't have as much time as you did before, Yeah. So I did think it was really cool when you brought that photo in of us, and to see that like, we were like, oh my gosh, we accomplished these things. And I
think it's either 7,000 or 7,500 was on the paper. You'll see, we'll post it, but that had been our biggest
contract for training that we'd closed to date at the time. It was several years ago.
Which seemed huge then.
It seemed like we were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. And we've done far, far beyond that now. And we've done it over and over and over again because of the skills that we've learned to get there. And because of Chris continuing to invest in his education and himself in training, and then us merging the two and building a team that's helped us get to where we are today.
Well, I think it takes pushing each other. Like if you have a spouse, try to be open to some ideas. Both of us have not been open to ideas before. Like I didn't want to leave the sheriff's office for a long time. I didn't want to, and I didn't leave because I didn't like it. But being able to push each other has been huge for us. Because just like this, right? Like I didn't want to do this, but it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Wait, I feel like I see a theme here. You're just blaming everything on me. A theme.
I know. I said both of us. Like there's been things that you want to do, and it's like, I don't know. There's things I want to do, and it's like, So I would say be open with each other and really entertain the idea with your spouse or whoever you're going to do it with, and then push each other. Like I'm constantly pushing, like, hey, we need to do this. We need to the point where Rachel's like, I know, we need to do that. And the same thing, like, hey, you need to do this. And it's like, I don't want to do that. And she says, no, we're doing it. You're going to do it. So being able to push each other in a healthy way.
It should be like encouraging and building each other up. And on the hardest days, like whether you've got to the point you're doing the things you want to do or not, right? You encourage each other along the way because sometimes you're going to have better days than others, and
lots of days,
and one of you is going to have a good day when one's having a bad day, and that's the way it should be, so that you can encourage each other. But I would agree, like encouraging each other in a loving way, pushing each other to be the best you can be is important. And hands down, I will die on this hill, but who you choose to marry or share your life with matters more than any other single decision that I believe you'll make in life.
Yeah,
it'll make or break what you accomplish in life.
Absolutely. I agree. So, and mentoring, find people that know more than you, like Rachel was saying. Invest in yourself. You hear that all the time. Like it's true. Take the time, find somebody that knows more and try to mentor with them. Yeah, it's going to cost some money, but it's in the long run, you're investing in yourself. And then the most important thing is you got to move. You got to make a decision, and you just got to go for it.
Move forward.
Educated, right? Don't just jump. But at some point you got to jump. But have some education on what you're going to do. But that's probably the biggest thing you see is people continue to say, well, I was going to do this, or I've got this idea, and they never do it. And that was us for a long time until it was like, hey, we got pushed a little bit, and then we jumped, and here we are.
And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? You make a decision, you move forward with momentum, take the step, then you learn the next step you need to take. Or once you take the step, then it's obvious what the next step you need to take is. But you're not going to get to step 50 if you don't take step 1. You just got to believe in yourself enough to do it. So we kind of got off on a tangent there at the end, and we have so many more Q&A questions that we want to share with you guys. So we will do another episode because the list of questions that we get on the daily is long and growing by the day. So we will do another episode here soon. Thank you all so very much for joining us for episode 8 for this Q&A session, and we will see you in the next episode. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Elite K-9 Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and share with a follow dog lover, trainer, or handler.
We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at any time at support@idahoeliteK9.com.
And if you're ready to take your dog training or boarding to the next level, you can find us at www.idahoeliteK9.com and www.idahoeliteK9boardingsuites.com as well.
Until next time, stay consistent and keep training.